One, I'm looking forward. I've actually been looking forward to this discussion all week because whether we agree or disagree, Marc Emery is somebody who stands up for what he believes in, and I respect that 110%. And I'm glad to have you in studio tonight.
And it's what a lot of other people believe in too. So it's like I'm, not just speaking on my own behalf, although I certainly do that, but speaking on behalf of like really 190 million people around the world who are all oppressed and all love cannabis and would all love to be at the Global Marijuana March tomorrow.
Yeah, it's another march in this city. I mean, we've had one not too long ago, and we're going to get to that about the Compassion Club in just a few minutes and the show of support in this city. Let's talk a little bit about what you're going through personally right now, though. For those who don't know, you are the Prince of Pot, let's say self-proclaimed cannabis advocate. Why do you feel so passionately about this issue?
Well, I started this 20 years ago, and when marijuana books and magazines in this country were banned, Parliament actually made outlawed Grow Your Own Stone, the Grow Book, and High Times magazine. And so when I went to look for a book by a guy named Jack Herrera called The Emperor Wears No Clothes, people told me it was not available in Canada, not permitted. And I had never heard that a book wasn't permitted in Canada. So that's how I started in activism. Basically, it took us 5 years. A man named Umberto Irafida, a lawyer named Alan Young, and myself got into court, and we overturned that law. So even though it was in effect for 7 years, from 1987 to 1995, we got books and magazines about marijuana legal, and we started our own magazine called Cannabis Culture, and that's what I've done for 15 years. And I've been involved in every aspect. We used to sell seeds for 10 years, and the slogan was overgrowing the government. And I would sell these seeds for a lot of money, and people would send me millions of dollars a year, really, from all over the world. And then we used all our profits to subvert the drug war through the democratic system, through peaceful democratic organizations. We would give $500,000 away every year for 10 years until it was about $4.5 million by 2005.
Wow.
And that was a great effect. We did class action suits, ballot initiatives, Supreme Court challenges. We paid for political parties, candidates, and basically the movement's progressed a lot in 20 years, so that now we're having the largest march in the world tomorrow. About 20,000 people will be expected if it's a good day. And we just got through in Vancouver 2 weeks ago having an incredible 420 celebration where about 8,000 people came. And mass defiance, it's the largest mass defiance in the history of the world, this kind of movement, because we're all going to meet tomorrow, and there'll be 20,000 people, and they'll all be breaking the law. And there's nowhere else where you can find that. Now, as for me...
Can I ask you very quickly, because I've had a problem with this. I think that if you're going to get caught and you're going to break the law, that you should get some sort of ticket, that you should, in fact, have some sort of punishment. And if you do, if the police hand that out, then that should be fine. You break the law, you're willing to stand up for your convictions, that's fine by me. But it seems like the police have sort of taken a spectator's approach.
Well, they have. And what that tells you, though, because no one's going to call up tomorrow and insist the police arrest anybody. And that's very important. So not only do 20,000 people defy the law, the police don't really think it's serious enough to even arrest anyone or charge anyone, and the public doesn't call up and complain. So what the purpose of this march really is to tell people the law is an ass and it should be repealed, because ultimately lots of people suffer because a lot of medical marijuana people have to pay these black market prices for pot. I mean, it's outrageous. $200 an ounce for some organic thing that comes out of the ground should be about $5 or $10 an ounce, like it would be for cucumbers or lettuce or anything like that. But because of prohibition and because it's huge demand around the world, the price of marijuana is shockingly high considering how much is produced.
Can we go back in time? Because I found it interesting watching some of the old highlights of the reasons why marijuana was prohibited in the first place. It had a lot to do with religion, had a lot to do with race.
Well, mostly race, actually. Even in Canada, it was banned because a magistrate in Alberta named Emily Murphy, who's actually considered quite famous historically in Canada, for winning the Persons case in 1929, where women were validated before the law as human beings entitled to legal rights. But as well as that, she was a strange eugenist person, so she believed in sterilizing the low IQ people in Alberta, and she also had a great distrust for and dislike for Asians, Orientals, Hispanics, black people, even though Canada didn't have that many black people or Hispanics. But in 1923, she started interviewing people about this new menace in the United States called marijuana. And she had these hearings for 6 months, and there was such outrageous testimony that they made it illegal that year in Parliament without any discussion. Just said, we've added marijuana to the schedule, and that was the substance of the debate. And ever since 1923, marijuana has been illegal. But, we grew cannabis in Canada since 1575 in Quebec. It was brought here, it was cultivated, except in those days they used it to make rope and sails and cloth and clothing. And we did that for about 400 years here in Canada before people realized it's the same plant that some people were smoking.
Why is there such a push? Well, let's get to what you're going through in the United States, because I mean that's a big part of this. This is Marc Emery. He's a cannabis advocate. You've been indicted by American authorities back in 2005 on drug and money laundering charges stemming from the mail order pot seed business. They threw out the money laundering charges because you basically copped a plea, I guess, in that.
Well, let me explain what's happened. They basically said they put out a press release on the day of my arrest from Karen Tandy of the DEA, and in 5 references she kept talking about my propagandist magazine, Cannabis Culture, and all my legalization activities that now wouldn't have any money because they'd arrest me. And they're boasting about all my political activities and how they've curtailed them. So the DEA admitted all along this is all about politics. No other Canadian seed dealer, and they've been around for over a decade, is being sought for extradition, and no other seed dealer gave away millions of dollars like I did to the cause that the DEA is definitely against. So what they did is they called me the #1 drug trafficking kingpin in all of Canada, one of the top 50 most wanted in the world, and that each charge manufacturing marijuana, distributing marijuana, and money laundering, which was giving away all my money, they were 10 years each mandatory minimum. So it was like 30 years to life they were seeking. And then they came to me with a deal. They said, listen, we'll drop the charges against your 2 co-accused. They won't have to go to jail if you cop to a 5-year plea. So, you know, under duress...
I get the sense that having your 2 co-accused get off was important to you.
That was really good, because in all my activism, I've never had anybody spend 1 day in jail as a consequence of what I've done. So I like that. My children have never suffered. My employees and friends have always been kept safe, and I regard that as important. I want everybody to feel safe around me. Like, if anyone's going to take the brunt of this problem, I'm going to take it, and it'll be cool. Don't worry about it. And so that's what's happened. They came back and they gave me a 5-year deal. Okay, come for 5 years in jail. And we accepted that because that way Jody gets to see me alive again. At 30, 40 years, you know, I'm 52 years old. The odds of me ever being seen alive again outside of a prison would be very remote. But the thing is, I also knew that the Minister of Justice here in Canada has to extradite me, officially let me go. He could refuse. He could say, no, it's outrageous. We shouldn't be sending people to the United States, you know, for seeds. And, you know, I mean, seeds are such an ordinary natural product. I mean, when you've got seeds illegal in any jurisdiction, you know you've got a tyranny, because seeds are fundamental to life. They don't have any drug quality themselves. They're an epitome of everything that we do on Earth. We create.
You did know, though, that you were breaking the law.
Oh yeah, well that was the intent. The intent was to break the law, collect all that money, and give it out to people who were going to fight the law. And the other thing is, by saying overgrowing the government, my theory was one guy like me could distribute millions of seeds over years, which would produce millions of plants, which would basically run tens of thousands of government agents ragged in futility, because there would just be more next year and the year after that. And that's exactly what's happened. There's more marijuana being produced on Earth now than any other time in history.
Do you take a little bit of pleasure watching them run ragged?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. That's my example to people in part of my speech tomorrow, is never underestimate how much evil you can undo as just one person. One person has a lot of power if you're willing to take a chance and put yourself on the line. Now, if it were that easy, more people would do it, because, you know, I am facing jail, and the U.S. federal penitentiaries are rough places. But I don't particularly worry about that, because I'm looking down the road at history, and I'm thinking, in this internet generation, young people are being very influenced by my work. They're really admiring of it. Marijuana legalization is the one issue young people can really rally behind, because they see its oppression rather directly. They see their friends being hassled. They see all the stigma attached to it. They see all the difficulties everybody has, not so much in getting pot, but in just staying out of jail, staying out of police arrest records. Once you get arrested for marijuana, you can't travel to the United States anymore. You can't go to an American university. You can't see your family in the United States. Your travel to Japan and other countries is going to be curtailed, all because of a marijuana possession conviction. We
barely scratched the surface here. I want to come back and talk about compassion clubs. I want to talk a little bit more about the extradition. There's just many, many things that we want to talk about, and we're going to take a quick 60-second pause. Marc Emery, my guest, the Prince of Pot, the cannabis advocate, here in town for tomorrow's big rally, and we'll get more with him in just a second as the Ryan Dole Show continues.